What would you risk for a fortune in gold, your freedom, your life, or even your soul? For a group of cunning thieves in 1855, the answer was simple: everything. In the heart of Victorian England, a land bustling with innovation and ambition, the trains symbolized more than mere transportation. They were lifelines, carrying wealth and prosperity across the nation. Among these riches was the ultimate prize: gold. Transported in tightly secured carriages, this precious metal was destined for international trade, fueling the empire's economic dominance. But with great wealth came great temptation. Hidden in the shadows were men who saw these ironclad carriages not as symbols of progress, but as opportunities. Among them were masterminds who dared to dream the unthinkable, to intercept a train loaded with gold, a feat so audacious it seemed impossible. The year was 1855, and a shipment of gold worth 12,000 equivalent to millions today was scheduled to travel from London to Paris. It was a routine journey, or so everyone thought. What no one knew was that a group of criminals had been watching, planning, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This was no ordinary crime. The men behind it weren't impulsive street thieves. They were meticulous, intelligent, and utterly fearless. Their plan wasn't just bold, it was revolutionary. Before diving into the heist itself, let's meet the minds behind it and understand what drove them to risk everything for a golden opportunity. The plan to steal the gold wasn't born overnight. It was the result of weeks, perhaps months, of careful observation and meticulous preparation. The ringleader, a man named Edward Agar, was no stranger to crime. Agar was a career criminal with a talent for forgery and an uncanny ability to outsmart the law. But even he knew he couldn't pull this off alone. Agar assembled a team of equally audacious individuals, including William Pierce, a corrupt railway employee who served as the insider, and a locksmith named James Burgess, whose skills would be critical to gaining access to the gold. Each man brought a unique skill set to the table, and together they formed a criminal dream team. Their target was a bullion-carriagean armored train car, specifically designed to transport valuables. The carriage was equipped with locked safes, each requiring multiple keys to open. The gold bars, neatly packed in wooden boxes, were thought to be unassailable. But Agar and his team were undeterred. Their first challenge was reconnaissance. Pierce used his position at the railway company to study the train schedules, security measures, and the route the gold shipment would take. He discovered that the gold would be loaded in London and transported to Folkestone, where it would then cross the English Channel to France. To carry out their heist, the team needed two things: duplicate keys to the safes and access to the train itself. This is where their ingenuity truly shone. Pierce managed to smuggle one of the original keys out of the railway offices, allowing Burgess to create an exact replica. It was a painstaking process, as the safes were built to deter even the most skilled locksmiths. But Burgess was no ordinary locksmith. His precision work ensured that their counterfeit keys would be indistinguishable from the originals. As Agar and his team finalized their plan, they knew the stakes were high. But one question lingered. What if the key to the gold wasn't in the hands of the robbers, but in the hands of the people they least expected? Could the true mastermind of the heist have been someone outside the crew? Let us know in the comments, did the inside man really have control, or was there something more at play? If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more historical true crime tales. And if you've got any theories or thoughts on how the Great Train Robbery went down, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take on this audacious heist. Next, the team had to find a way onto the train without arousing suspicion. They decided to board as legitimate passengers. Pierce, using his insider knowledge, reserved a private compartment adjacent to the bullion carriage. Agar and another accomplice, George Tester, disguised themselves as wealthy businessmen, complete with fine suits and polished shoes. The day of the heist arrived. The team boarded the train at London Bridge Station, their hearts pounding as they executed the first phase of their plan. As the train chugged along its route, Agar and Tester made their move. They carefully picked the lock separating their compartment from the bullion carriage, ensuring they made no noise to alert the guards stationed nearby. Once inside, they worked quickly but methodically. Using the duplicate keys, They opened the safes and transferred the gold bars into specially designed bags they had hidden under their clothing. The entire operation was timed to perfection. Every second counted. By the time the train reached its next stop, Agar and Tester were back in their compartment, appearing calm and composed. The gold was gone, but the thieves left no immediate trace of their crime. The team disembarked at Folkestone, blending seamlessly with the other passengers. From there, they dispersed, each man carrying a share of the stolen fortune. For a brief moment, it seemed as though they had pulled off the perfect crime. But the heist wasn't just about the execution. It was about the aftermath. How would they divide the loot? How would they avoid suspicion? And most importantly, could they evade the relentless pursuit of justice? The answers would come soon enough, as the Great Train Robbery of 1855 began to unravel in ways they could never have anticipated. The success of the heist marked only the beginning of the thieves' ordeal. Pulling off the robbery was one thing. Escaping with the stolen fortune was another. For Edward Agar and his team, every second after the train stopped at Folkestone was a race against time, and every glance over their shoulder felt like a potential threat. The men had carefully planned their escape routes. Agar and George Tester carried their share of the gold in inconspicuous bags, blending seamlessly with the passengers disembarking at the station. To avoid suspicion, they dressed as affluent travelers, their polished appearances a stark contrast to the desperate act they had just committed. Meanwhile, William Pierce, the insider, had already arranged for a carriage to be waiting nearby. The team loaded the stolen gold onto the vehicle, ensuring they avoided crowded areas where prying eyes might catch a glimpse of the heavy bags. From there, they split up, each man taking a different route back to London. Dividing the gold was the next critical step. The team regrouped at a safe housey, dimly lit, inconspicuous building in the heart of the city. Here, the atmosphere was tense. Each man had risked everything for this moment, and trust was a fragile commodity. Agar, ever the meticulous planner, had weighed the gold bars before the heist, ensuring that every member received their fair share. But even as they divided the spoils, the enormity of their crime began to sink in. They had stolen the equivalent of millions in today's currency, a sum so vast that it was impossible to spend without attracting attention. The first sign of trouble came sooner than expected. News of the robbery spread quickly, sparking outrage and fascination across the country. Victorian England, with its rigid class structure and emphasis on law and order, viewed the crime as a direct attack on its values. The authorities wasted no time in launching an investigation, and the pressure on the thieves began to mount. For Agar, the immediate challenge was laundering the gold. He enlisted the help of trusted contacts in London's underworld, exchanging the bars for smaller, untraceable sums of money. But even this process was fraught with danger. Each transaction increased the risk of discovery, and rumors of the heist circulated like wildfire in criminal circles. Tester, less experienced in the art of evasion, made a crucial mistake. He flaunted his newfound wealth, purchasing expensive clothing and indulging in public displays of extravagance. It wasn't long before his behavior drew suspicion, both from law enforcement and from those within his own circle. As the days turned into weeks, paranoia set in. The team members, once bound by a shared goal, began to distrust one another. Agar, ever the pragmatist, realized that their greatest vulnerability lay not in the gold itself, but in their inability to maintain their silence. Despite their best efforts to cover their tracks, the cracks in their plan began to show. Witnesses came forward, describing suspicious behavior on the train and at the station. Railway officials, under intense scrutiny, provided detailed accounts of the missing gold and the methods likely used to access the safes. The net was tightening, and the thieves knew it. They had executed one of the most daring heists of the 19th century, but their getaway was anything but clean. As the investigation gained momentum, the question was no longer if they would be caught, but when. The Great Train Robbery of 1855 was far from over. The manhunt that followed would push the boundaries of Victorian-era law enforcement, setting the stage for a dramatic confrontation between the masterminds of the heist and the relentless pursuit of justice. The Great Train Robbery of 1855 was unlike anything Victorian England had ever witnessed. News of the heist dominated headlines, igniting a wave of public fascination and outrage. The sheer audacity of the crime left people questioning how such a feat could have been accomplished. And, more importantly, who could have been behind it? The authorities, under immense pressure, launched an exhaustive investigation. Leading the charge was Scotland Yard, whose detectives were determined to bring the culprits to justice. In an era before forensic science or advanced technology, the investigation relied on meticulous observation, witness accounts, and the careful piecing together of clues. The first breakthrough came when investigators examined the safes. They discovered faint scratches near the locks, evidence of tampering with precision tools. This indicated that the thieves had access to duplicate keys, which pointed to an inside job. Suspicion fell on railway employees, and a comprehensive review of staff records began. Meanwhile, in the underworld of London, whispers of the heist were impossible to silence. The sheer amount of stolen gold made discretion difficult, and the authorities knew that greed would eventually lead someone to slip up. It was George Tester who became the weakest link. His newfound wealth and reckless behavior did not go unnoticed. He frequented high-end establishments, flaunting expensive purchases and drawing the attention of both acquaintances and law enforcement. Investigators, following a trail of rumors, began to close in on him. Tester was arrested after a painstaking stakeout, and under intense interrogation, his resolve crumbled. Though he initially denied any involvement, the threat of a harsh sentence and promises of leniency led him to confess. He provided crucial details about the heist and named his accomplices, including Edward Agar. Agar, ever the strategist, had been lying low, carefully avoiding any displays of wealth or connections to the crime. But Tester's confession turned the spotlight on him, and the authorities wasted no time in tracking him down. Agar was arrested in a dramatic raid at his hideout, where investigators found tools and documents linking him to the robbery. The climax came when William Pierce, the inside man, realized the net was tightening around him. Desperate to escape, he fled London, abandoning his family and attempting to cross into France. His flight, however, only confirmed his guilt, and an international search was launched. Pierce's capture was a moment of triumph for the investigators. He was apprehended at the French border, where his panicked demeanor and inconsistent story aroused suspicion. When confronted with evidence, he too confessed, sealing the case against the entire team. The manhunt had lasted weeks, but its resolution brought both relief and a sense of awe. The ingenuity of the thieves was undeniable, but so too was the determination of Victorian law enforcement to bring them to justice. As the dust settled, the stolen gold was only partially recovered. Much of it had been melted down or hidden, its whereabouts lost to history. But for the thieves, there was no escaping the long arm of the law. Their trial would become a spectacle, drawing crowds eager to witness the final chapter of this audacious crime. The Great Train Robbery of 1855 had captured the imagination of Victorian England. But the drama wasn't over yet. The trial of Edward Agar, William Pierce, George Tester, and their accomplices became a public spectacle, one of the most widely followed cases of the 19th century. Inside the dimly lit courtroom, the atmosphere was electric. Crowds packed the gallery, eager to catch a glimpse of the men who had dared to challenge the perceived invulnerability of the railway system. The press labeled them as both villains and folk heroes, their crime condemned but their audacity secretly admired. The prosecution meticulously laid out the evidence. Testimony from Tester, who had turned state's witness in exchange for leniency, painted a vivid picture of the heist's planning and execution. The duplicate keys, the insider knowledge, the meticulous time and each detail was presented with precision, leaving little room for doubt. For Agar and Pierce, their defense hinged on discrediting the witnesses and the circumstantial nature of some of the evidence. But the weight of Tester's confession, and the physical evidence found during the raids, proved insurmountable. In the end, the verdict was inevitable. The men were found guilty on multiple counts, and the sentences were harsh. Edward Agar and William Pierce, deemed the masterminds of the operation, received lengthy prison term. For George Tester, his cooperation earned him a lighter sentence, though he would remain branded as a traitor in the criminal underworld. The sentencing marked the official end of the Great Train Robbery, but its impact reverberated far beyond the courtroom. For the public, it was a tale of ambition and greed, a reminder of how even the most sophisticated plans could crumble under human error. For the authorities, it was a wake-up call that prompted sweeping changes in security measures. The railway companies introduced more robust safes, employed armed guards, and implemented stricter oversight of their employees. But what became of the stolen gold? Despite the arrests and the recovery of a small portion, much of the fortune remained unaccounted for. Some believed it was melted down and sold, its origins erased forever. Others speculated that hidden caches still lay buried in forgotten corners of England, waiting to be discovered. For Edward Agar, the prison years were a stark contrast to the freedom he had enjoyed as a criminal mastermind. Once a man of sharp intellect and daring schemes, he spent his days confined to a cell, reflecting on the choices that had led him there. William Pierce, the insider who had betrayed the railway, fared no better. His name became synonymous with treachery, and his life after prison was marked by disgrace and obscurity. Yet, the legacy of the heist endured. The Great Train Robbery of 1855 became a symbol of both ingenuity and folly, a story retold in newspapers, books, and later in film and television. It highlighted the vulnerabilities of even the most well-guarded systems and served as a cautionary tale about the lengths people would go to for wealth. As the years passed, the crime became less about the men who committed it and more about the myth it created. The robbers were immortalized in history, their exploits inspiring both admiration and condemnation. And while their plan had initially succeeded, their ultimate failure served as a reminder that no crime, no matter how carefully orchestrated, could escape the relentless pursuit of justice. The Great Train Robbery of 1855 remains one of the most infamous crimes of its era, a testament to the audacity of its perpetrators and the determination of those who brought them to justice. Its legacy lives on, a story of ambition, betrayal, and the enduring consequences of greed. As the story of the Great Train Robbery of 1855 fades into history, one question remains: could the robbers have escaped entirely if they hadn't gotten greedy or made that one fatal mistake? What do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have pulled it off? Or was justice always going to catch up with them?